Magdalene's blog 51. Rachel the healer lived in a house near to the coast that she'd inherited from her mother, together with the trading business that her mother had taken over when Rachel's father had died in a shipwreck. Rachel had sold the remaining ship to its present sea captain, but she kept one of the two warehouses to use in a quite different way from before. Since young adulthood, it became clear to her parents that she didn't wish to marry, at least not to any of the prospective suitors that they had come up with, so they had reluctantly but indulgently allowed her to pursue her passion. Her passion that was to understand everything about how the world was the way it was, what life itself was. A passion that brought her into contact with many wonderful and sometimes strange people, and finally led her to meeting the two women who taught her the most. Melody was the chief herbalist at Astarte's temple in Tyre when Ariane had been working there, and Rachel's friend, another Rachel, had gained acceptance to be a priestess. The same summer that Astel travelled up from Egypt and stayed some months in the temple before going on to Antioch. It was Melody that introduced Rachel to so many of the quiet wonders of a parallel world, where plants gathered and expressed the elemental properties for life. The temple cooks used many, of course, and the trained priestesses knew some others, but Melody was so happy to find that her extraordinary ability to feel a plant's uses and purposes somehow seemed to rub off on Rachel. She had found someone who could receive her knowledge, take it on. Of all the learning Rachel had gained, it was this branch of herbal law and medicine that she came to love and practice most, making a garden at her parents' house near the sea that became an expression of her and her abilities. Astel was perhaps an even greater influence on Rachel than Melody, for this extraordinary, wiry, little old lady started her on the path of being able to read people, to know what they needed to gain well-being and balance. It caused a great ache in Rachel when Astel told her it was time for her teachers to travel on, and forbade Rachel to go with her. "You have all you need here. Use it," she said, as they walked together in the temple grounds. "I cannot teach you more. You have to learn it by your own practice." Rachel said nothing, but it was as if the elder woman read her concerns. "And nor can the sisters of the temple. Don't be persuaded to join them." She stopped and turned to look Rachel straight in the face. "Your destiny is something else, full of hope and happiness, yes, of your own sort and making." And she did find happiness and well-being of her own kind. Using the warehouse of her father's business in Tyre, she created a kind of refuge there for many people who came to her for help. It started as fulfilling something she had wanted to do as a girl, to help the families of the sailors with some of the hardships that they faced, and it turned into somewhere that all sorts of people came with their troubles and illnesses. She was able to improve the health and state of many of them, and some of them stayed, though she would insist they worked to support the refuge. Others went on their way, but always her reputation increased as the healer. The house at the coast was her refuge, where she could get away from all the people pressures. Its large walled garden was where she grew nearly all the herbs she needed, as Melody had taught her, and the gate at the further end led to paths that wound directly along the shore itself. She was watching the sun go down over the sea, thinking about a strange person she had dreamt of the night before, a beautiful lady lying very badly hurt, with vultures flapping around her. Rachel took note of such dreams, and had become good at recalling the details. She remembered that one of the vultures had looked at her before turning back to hack its beak into the woman's wounds. A demon face, such as possessed so many troubled souls. The woman was alive. She moved her arms as if to try to brush the things away, to push them back, but to no avail, and her voice called out as her eyes searched around for help. Rachel's heart went out to her, and yet she knew she could do nothing for people possessed by spirits, that it was beyond her skill. That was when she had woken up. She wondered now, as she watched the sun slipping down into a hazy reflection of itself in the sea, if having had that dream was anything to do with the reports of a great healer working in Capernaum in Galilee. He was able to cast out devils from people, it was said, and she had been thinking of going to see for herself. Going back into the house, she passed a window that faced down the road on which her house was set. Down the other end, a donkey and two people were struggling their way up the track, and there might have been another person lying across the donkey's back. She couldn't be certain. It would have been slightly comical, the way that one of them, a man, was staggering about, while the other, a woman in a green cloak, was pulling on the donkey's leading rope. Would have been, if she hadn't felt the urgency that was propelling them, and recognized that the woman was a priestess of the temple. Watching the scene in fascination, a shiver ran through Rachel.